Absolutely.
Please step into the stand, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please be seated. Please state your name for the record. Spell your first and last names.
First name is Edward, E-D-W-A-R-D. Last name Dixon, D-I-X-O-N.
Mr. Dixon, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me provide you with some instructions, which I give to every witness in every case. The first instruction is to please sit back and relax. The second instruction is to speak in a loud voice so all of us can hear you. The third instruction is to answer yes or no to a question rather than using a slang like And the last question is to wait until you hear an entire question before you even start to answer it. In our everyday lives, many of us are used to talking over each other, but it's important in a courtroom to hear only one person speaking at one time. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Thank you. Direct, please. Ms. Brazil.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Dixon.
Good morning.
Please tell us where you are employed.
I'm employed at AT&T.
And what is AT&T?
AT&T is a telecommunications company.
What is your position with AT&T?
My current position is I'm a senior network cell support engineer for AT&T.
How long have you been employed by AT&T?
Since 1997.
Mr. Dixon, as part of your responsibilities at AT&T, are you familiar with the preparation of cell phone records?
Yes.
Have you testified in a court proceeding in the past concerning cell phone records?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a 73-page document. I'd ask that it be marked P51, please.
Collectively, P51.
Mr. Dixon, prior to testifying this morning, did you have an opportunity to review cell phone records related to cell phone number 702-862-0973?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon, are you familiar with that document as being AT&T cell phone records detailing call information and subscriber information for the telephone number that I read to you?
Yes.
And are the records that you reviewed in People's 51 records that AT&T regularly keeps in the course of their business functioning?
Yes.
And are the records in these cell phone documents, do they contain entries of cell phone usage, data usage related to services provided by AT&T, and are those entries created or recorded near the time of the telephone or data activities utilized by the customer?
Yes.
Who is the subscriber for the cell phone number 702-862-0973?
Conrad Murray.
And Mr. Dixon, when was that account opened?
I have to take a look at my records.
Would that refresh your recollection?
Yes, ma'am.
Please take a look at the records, and would those be the cell phone records that I just described as being a 73-page document?
Yes.
And you brought a copy with you today?
Yes.
Please take a look at the records, and I'd like to know when the account was opened and the status of the account in June of 2009.
For my own clarification, I may have misheard. Is it 73 pages or 71?
I believe it's a 73-page document, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Service start date on the account is 1/28/2009.
What was the status of the account on June 25th, or the month of June in 2009? Active?
Active.
Mr. Dixon, I would like to direct your attention to an exhibit that I'm going to place on the projector, and it is page 21 of the exhibit previously marked as exhibit number 51. Your Honor, may I ask the court to dim the lights, please, to make visibility better?
Mrs. Benson, please.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon, did you have an opportunity to look specifically at page 21 of the cell phone records of Conrad Murray prior to coming to court today?
Yes.
Is there a way to expand it a little bit?
Is that better, Your Honor?
We're on our way. I think that's a lot better. You're just going to have to juggle around the page.
I will. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Dixon, are you able to see from your position there what is the far left-hand side of the top portion of People's 21, which is the page of billed usage for Conrad Murray's AT&T phone records beginning June 23rd, 2009, and then the bottom of the page continues with entries on June 25th, 2009. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
What I'd like to do is allow you to familiarize us with the information that's contained in these phone records. And I'd like to go across the top from left to right, and I'll move the exhibit over so that you and the jurors and the court and counsel can see what's on this particular exhibit. Would that be all right?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon, here in the far left-hand side, we see account number, and to the right of that, there's a multiple-digit number, and above that is the cell phone number of the subscriber, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to focus your attention now on the first first four columns of data, where it starts with item, date, time, and number called. I would just like to focus on those, but I'm going to go up to we'll just focus on, describe for us what the item means, date, time, and number called for purposes of the recordation of cell phone data.
Yes. As far as item information is identified with a numerical expression. Numerical expression represents as far as a stamp that we put on as far as record keeping. And the date, of course, is a date, and we have a month, a day, and a year. For time, we have a time stamp. And as indicated there, where the light is pointing, it's 4:59 p.m.
And what does that time in that column reflect?
That reflects Pacific Standard Time, or as far as location where the transaction was in place.
Where the call emanated or began from?
Yes.
And the next column, number called?
Number called identifies the number that's being called or their incoming call that's coming towards the device.
And the next column calls to. What's reflected in this column?
Calls to information represents as far as where the customer could be placed in the call, or it could be information as the number's called. And it gives general information. For example, right there we see Houston, Texas. Numbers called is a particular number there based on what is called the MPA in excess number, as far as number called, and the call to Houston, Texas.
Moving on to the next 5 columns that are reflected on the screen, starting here with minutes used and working across. Will you describe what each column means in terms of data and information?
Minutes used is actual minutes the customer used, and that number is rounded up to the nearest whole.
I'm sorry, and that is this column here. We see 2, 2, 2, 3, correct?
Yes.
And you said that the number is rounded up to the nearest whole, correct?
Yes.
And feature, that column is blank. What does that represent?
At AT&T, we have a whole gambit of calling features. It could be mobile-to-mobile calling. It could be a rate plan.
So information pertaining to the type of plan will be contained in this column.
Yes.
The next is usage type. What is meant by these 2 letters here?
The abbreviations that we see here for usage type, one represents DT. DT identifies daytime. NW is nights and weekends.
And next is charge. What does this column represent?
Charge is the amount that we actually bill the customer. And as you see here, daytime minutes, it's in its bucket, so it's indicated at 0. So during that transaction, he didn't have to pay as far as that particular call is within his bucket of minutes.
And here, roam type. What is signified with this column?
H identifies as being home network. There could be an R identified there as far as roaming network.
And here we have, looks like I can only get 2. This column, switch code, what is signified in this information?
Switch code identifies it's an acronym as far as the area where the call has terminated to or received from.
And SID?
SID is the service identification, and that represents AT&T mobility.
And the last 3 columns. What does serving area, LAC, and CID represent?
Serving area is a general location where the call may have been terminated from or received. And identified here as Los Angeles 3G is our 3G network. And LAC identifies location area code. And once again, that's a numerical expression.
And CID?
And CID is cell identity.
I'm sorry?
Cell identity for cell sites.
So in the column where the date information is recorded, I'd like to now focus on June 25th, and there are a variety of calls that are recorded as having transacted on June 25th, 2009, correct?
Yes.
And as you described for us in the columns, information reflected would be the date, the time, the number called, called to, and the minutes used, correct?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a 2-page document. I'd ask that it be marked People's 52, please.
It is.
Mr. Dixon, prior to testifying this morning, did you have an opportunity to review the document that I have placed on the projector that's been marked as People's Number 52?
Yes.
And this document, People's Number 52, contains the cell phone calls that are reflected in the AT&T phone records that were marked as people's number 51, reflecting the June 25th, 2009 incoming and outgoing calls on Conrad Murray's AT&T cell phone. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you reviewed the calls beginning 7:01 a.m. and through the period of 5:02 p.m. as I asked you to do, correct?
Yes.
Now, I'd like to focus your attention on the light gray areas beginning with 9:23 a.m. Do you see that there on the screen?
Yes.
And on June 25th, 2009, in the AT&T cell phone records that you have been testifying about, did you see a phone call at 9:23 a.m. and the call was placed from at 9:23 a.m. placed from 702-290-2909 to Conrad Murray's AT&T cell phone, lasting 22 minutes.
Yes.
And the next entry from AT&T phone records on June 25th, 2009 occurred at 10:14 a.m. It was a call from 713-699-4955 placed to Conrad Murray's AT&T cell phone, and that call duration was 2 minutes, correct?
Yes.
The next entry on the AT&T phone records of Conrad Murray is a phone call recorded at 11:07 a.m., and that call was from area code 619-994-3233, placed to Conrad Murray's AT&T cell phone, and that was a call lasting 1 minute.
Yes.
And the next call would be 11:18 a.m. A call from 702-862-0973, which we know is Conrad Murray's cell phone, and that call was placed to another 702 number, 866-6802, and that call duration was 32 minutes, correct?
Yes.
Moving to the next phone call, Conrad Murray's phone usage reflects a call at 11:49 a.m., and the number is 702-862-0973. Call placed to 702-808-4989. That call duration was 3 minutes. Is that accurate, sir?
Yes.
The next call would be immediately thereafter, 11:51 a.m. The call from Dr. Murray's phone to 832-366-3832, and that phone call lasted 11 minutes. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the next entry, usage of Dr. Murray's AT&T cell phone occurred at 12:12 p.m. It was a call from Conrad Murray's cell phone to area code 562-881-2570, and that call duration was 1 minute, correct?
Yes.
And then at 12:15 p.m., there was a call from that same previous number, 562-881-2570, placed to Dr. Murray's AT&T cell phone, and that phone call duration was 1 minute, correct?
Yes.
And then we have 4 more phone calls from his AT&T phone in the relevant time period that I requested you review. That would be 3:38 p.m., a call from Conrad Murray's cell phone to 310-310-8070, and that phone call lasted 2 minutes, correct?
Yes.
And then another phone call placed to the same number at 4:31 p.m., calling from Dr. Murray's AT&T cell phone to 310-310-8070, 1 minute.
Yes.
Same at 4:32 p.m., same call from Dr. Murray's cell phone to the same 310 number, 1 minute duration, and the same at 5:02 p.m., same call from Dr. Murray's cell phone to the same 310 number, 310-8070, 1 minute. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can I have the lights, please?
Maybe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon, the cell phone records that we are discussing today from AT&T contain information concerning data as well as cell phone usage, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to turn your attention now to page 66 of the AT&T document. And Your Honor, for the record, this is exhibit number 51, and it's page 66 of the AT&T records. Your Honor, may we have the lights, please?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon, turning our attention to page 66, is this a portion of Conrad Murray's cell phone records that reflect data transfer information related to a particular cell phone plan?
Yes.
Would you describe the information that is contained in this portion of the phone records, please?
The information that's contained in these records identify line items pertaining to data. We have as far as run date, run time, and also item number, date, and time. So we have item, we have a date, which is course, a month, a day, and a year. Time represents Pacific Standard Time in this identification. Send to, since it's data, there's no information that's indicated there. And receive from, no information. Quantity used, and that's in kilobytes. And we identify it as 4, then we go over the 13. So more data is being used there in comparison to 4.
So the higher number represents, would that be like a larger document or a wordier email, something like that?
More information is actually sent to the mobile, yes.
And the next column?
Next column identifies usage type. As data, we represent GPRS, which is called General Packet Radio Service.
What does SMS mean?
Short messaging service.
And continuing across the top with the headers reflecting type of information.
Roam type, which is blank. Switch code is blank. The SID. And also, the main important thing here is serving area identifies data. And there's one that's identified as text message. So a text message is either sent or received there.
Very well. So the serving area column represents a description of the type of usage of data, text message versus an email or internet, correct?
Yes.
And the LAC and the CID have the same explanation in relationship to data as to the cell phone usage that you previously explained, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon, I'd like to turn your attention to the data usage for the period of June 25th, 2009. And first, we'll just focus on the third column that is depicted here on the screen. This would be the times, correct?
Yes.
So on June 25th, the first data entry time would be 1:04 a.m., and all of these subsequent numbers are times 104, 204, 304, 404, 504, etc. They reflect data on the phone, correct?
Yes.
Is there anything significant in terms of your interpretation of this data when you see the timestamp of such uniformity, such as 104, 204, 304, etc.?
Yes.
And what is that, sir?
That represents that it's a sequential order identified in every hour as far as sequence. So that tells me that something happens on their device where they're automatically getting information that is pulled to them from their mobile handset, a particular setting.
Is that commonly known, if you're a customer, as push notification, where your phone can push data to your server?
Actually, it's called pull.
Pull notification?
Yes.
Okay. And does that mean that the user of the phone needs to do anything actively in order to have that information pulled to them, or is it something that's an automatic function?
Depending on the settings on the phone, you can set it up for sequential per hour every 15 minutes or maybe even 30 minutes. Depends on the type of phone, if you want your information pulled to you.
But it could be pulled to you without you doing anything. For example, if I set my phone a certain way right now, information could be effectively sent to me without me touching my phone or doing anything. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
So these entries, June 25th, with all of these timestamps next to them, reflect activities related to Conrad Murray's AT&T phone as it relates to data, correct?
Yes.
And we have reviewed page 66, which ends with item number 882 on June 25th, 2009, a time of 8:54 a.m. related to data, correct?
Yes.
And turning your attention to page 66, this contains additional items of data-related activity from 9 a.m. all the way down to 1:23 p.m., 2:19 p.m., 2:54 p.m., and all the way down through 4:03 p.m.
Yes.
And on page 68 continues with data activity on the cell phone all the way through to stopping at, for purposes of our records, 5:02 p.m., entry item 909 on June 25th, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I have nothing further.
If we could put on the lights, please. Ms. Brazil?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cross-examination, Scorgian?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Dixon, you testified that the subscriber for this telephone number was Dr. Murray, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But as you sit here today, can you tell us who in fact was using the phone on that particular date and times?
No.
Okay. The records don't identify the person who's using the phone, correct?
Correct.
Now, we reviewed certain records concerning text messages, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But those records don't, in fact, give you the contents of those text messages, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a way that someone can actually receive the contents of the text messages?
No.
Okay. So AT&T does not save that?
In normal course of business, we do not save that information.
Okay. Now, showing you what's been marked as People's 52. Yeah, Your Honor, may we have a moment?
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I apologize for the delay.
Thank you.
Mr. Dixon, showing you what's previously been marked as People's 52. You recognize that document?
Yes.
Okay, now, when you look at the phone number, for example, at the 8:49 a.m., 702-683-5217, do you see that?
You have to zoom in, please, sir.
Your Honor, can we dim the lights as well, please?
Yes, and if you want to provide a copy to the witness, you may, although, again, with our low-tech environment here, of which I'm constantly apologizing.
See
we
the
don't have
column
lights.
call from?
Yes.
And then third down, there's a phone number 702-683-5217, correct?
Yes.
And below that, it says Antoinette Gill.
Yes.
Okay, as you see here today, do you know whether or not that number belongs to Antoinette Gill?
No.
Okay, so we don't know whether that's accurate or not, correct?
Objection states the testimony.
Overruled. You may answer it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell from this exhibit whether a particular call that was made, whether it was answered by the telephone belonging to Dr. Murray?
No.
Okay. Would you be able to tell whether a particular call went to voicemail?
From this document, no.
Okay. From the records previously marked as People's 51, would you be able to tell whether a particular call was answered?
Yes.
Okay. Would you know whether a particular call went to voicemail?
Yes.
Okay. Would you be able to tell whether a particular voicemail was checked?
Yes.
Okay. Would you be able to tell whether a particular text message was reviewed?
No.
Okay. Showing you People's Exhibit 52, you see the call at 11:26 a.m.?
Yes.
Okay. And that was a call from a Bridget Morgan at 310-590-9566, correct?
Objection. Beyond the scope.
Overruled on that ground. You may answer. You need to re-ask?
I need to be re-asked because this information identifies another party's call records outside of AT&T.
So based on your phone records, would you be able to tell whether or not that particular call was answered?
Objection vague as to which call.
I believe that the Bridget Morgan designated call.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Overruled. You may answer it.
I wouldn't know. No.
Okay, showing you the call that was, time of call says 10:34 a.m. Do you see that?
Yes, once again, this information that you're giving me is from a different party. This is not AT&T's records.
I understand that, Mr. Dixon, but the call at 10:34 by Dr. Murray's AT&T cellular telephone, is that reflected in the phone records of AT&T?
Yes.
Okay, so in reference to that call to a Stacy Ruggles at 619-994-3233, you see that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that call would be reflected in your records, correct?
Yes.
And those records are in front of you?
I have the records with me.
Okay, and can you tell us whether that call was answered or whether or not it was a voicemail that was left?
From looking at this here, I wouldn't know.
Looking at the other records previously marked as People's 51, would you be able to look at those and tell us whether that call, whether it was answered or whether a voicemail was left?
Yes.
Can you do that for us?
you see it, or would you like the lights turned up a little bit?
I can see it, sir.
We can turn the lights back on, Your Honor. I'm done with the
Thank
exhibit.
you.
Thank you.
And excuse me, sir.
Yes.
You have a question, Mr. Dixon?
Yes, the date in question.
It's June 25 at approximately 10:34 a.m. There was a phone call placed from Dr. Murray's AT&T cellular telephone to a 619-994-3233 phone number.
Objection mistakes the testimony. That's a call from the Sprint phone, not the AT&T phone.
Sustained. You just want to re-ask it, please?
Mr. Dixon, moving to another point, if you were to go to page 66 of those phone records that we reviewed, that you referred to as the data usage, and you had indicated that there was a what you called a pull notification, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's where we saw every hour there was a 104, a 204, a 304, a 404, a 504, and a 604 entry, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the phone is automatically set up to do that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not as though the subscriber is actually checking his phone every hour, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Gorgian, thank you. Ms. Brazil?
Thank
Oh,
you.
wait, do you need a moment? Mr. Chernoff's confirmed with Mr. Gorgian. Do you need a few more questions?
Mr. Dixon, looking at People's Exhibit 52, you see the 11:07 a.m. entry?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a call to the AT&T cellular telephone that we're talking about by a 619-994-3233 number, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us whether or not that particular phone call was answered or if it was gone to voicemail?
No.
Okay, looking at the records in front of you, People's Exhibit 51, would you be able to tell us if you were to look at those records?
No.
Okay, so there's no way to determine whether that particular call was answered or if it went to voicemail?
I can try to check as far as call duration by looking at the duration of the call.
Okay, and can you please do that for us?
And you'd be looking at People's 51 for that?
Yes. Six 25th,
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Mr. Dixon.
11:51 a.m.
At 11:07 a.m.
07. It's identified as an incoming call. We don't know if it went to voicemail.
What page is that on, People's 51?
Page 21, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, and does it also give you the duration of the call, the length of the call?
1 minute.
1 minute? Okay. But as you testified earlier, even if it was 35 seconds, it gets rounded up to a minute, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But as you sit here today, you're not able to tell us whether or not that call went to voicemail or if it was answered?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Gorgian, thank you. Ms. Brazil, redirect, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Dixon, as a point of clarification, when you reviewed People's Number 52, there are two colors on this chart, and the calls that pertain to your employer, AT&T, those calls are reflected in the lighter color. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the phone call entries on this chart that are in yellow, they pertain to an entirely different cell phone provider representing a second cell phone that was being used during the time period, correct?
Yes.
And on the last row of phone calls here, I'd like to direct your attention to a typographical error in the chart, People's Number 52. If you'll check the records, please, the call indicating a time of 3:38 p.m., a call placed by Conrad Murray from his AT&T cell phone to a 310-310-807 number. Would you confirm that should be 3:58 instead of 3:38? There's a typographical error on my chart.
Yes, confirmed.
So the correct time for the 3:38 call should be 3:58, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'm going to reflect the accurate time on the People's Exhibit. May the record reflect I have placed 3:58. Is that correct, Mr. Dixon, as to the AT&T phone records, a call placed by Conrad Murray's AT&T phone at 3:58 p.m.?
Yes.
Defense counsel asked you about your knowledge of the information on the call chart related to the individuals' names. You don't know the names of the individuals, do you?
No.
But you do know, and you have verified the accuracy of the telephone numbers as it relates to AT&T on this chart, as well as the phone records that have been presented in court today, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I have no further questions.
Ms. Brazil, thank you. Mr. Gorgian, recross?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. May Mr. Dixon be excused, Ms. Brazil?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Gorgian?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Dixon, I want to thank you for your testimony.
All right.
Sir, please do not discuss your testimony or the facts of the case with any other witnesses until we finish the trial. You may step down. You may leave. Thank you, sir. May the people... Oh, I was just going to tell the people to get the records. Mr. Dixon's done so. The next witness for the people is...
People called